I believe that oftentimes we as humans, we as a society, what we do is we just take things that other people say and we accept it as true. And I think the problem with that is if you just blindly accept things to be true that other people are saying, it impacts the way you perceive yourself. What is this should? There's no should. There's only what does exist. Like, this should is just based on perceptions. These things aren't concrete. They're not objective. You don't have to do these things if you choose not to do these things. For years, I've tried my absolute best not to speak my age out loud. To be honest, I treat it almost like Voldemort. Like, it's that thing that shall not be named. People would come up to me, they'd ask me my age eventually in conversation, and I do my absolute best not to give them a straightforward answer. Now, is this weird to most people? Yeah, I'm sure most people find this pretty weird. Is it necessary? In the grand scheme of things, not really. But I do have a reason for it, and I want to share my reasoning in this video. But first, let's talk about the benefits of being young. Let's talk about the benefits of feeling eternally youthful. Now, I'm sure it's obvious, right? You have the physical vitality of being youthful. You have the endless, boundless energy from being youthful, greater endurance. You just feel better in general. At least that's been my experience so far. I imagine if you were to ask most people why they'd want to stay youthful, these are the reasons they'd give. They just want to feel better in the grand scheme of things. Let's be real. If you could choose to be in the 25-year-old version of yourself's body or the 85-year-old version of yourself's body, which would you choose? For most people, I think the answer is pretty obvious. Now, despite it seeming obvious that being older is more of a disadvantage than staying younger, it blows my mind how many people succumb to their age. Now, hear me out. This is what I think about this. I think that the way you behave and how you exhibit your age has less to do with your chronological aging, and it has a lot more to do with your mental aging. It's how you perceive yourself. Now, for the record, I understand that aging does exist, obviously. I'm not that crazy. I understand that as you get older, there are certain things that do begin to impact you. I understand that as you age, you could have decreased bone density. I understand that perhaps to a degree, you might lose a little bit more muscle more rapidly as you age. I do understand that your metabolism can slow down as you get older. I understand these things. However, my belief is that a lot of the things that truly impact us have less to do with sort of the actual aging process, and they have a lot more to do with how you perceive your age itself. So with this being said, I think that to a degree, you can sort of control your age. Now, let me give you, I know that might sound like a bit wacky and a bit weird, but let me give you an example of what I mean. I remember when I was growing up, I would always hear people say like, oh, it's terrible to get older. You know, when you get older, you lose energy. Man, it would be so nice to be a kid. Kids have just like endless energy. Kids have infinite energy. And I remember sitting there one day and just thinking about that. Do kids have infinite energy? And I know that's not literal, but you get what I mean. Do they have a lot of energy, more than adults do? Now, sometimes when I have these like theories, or sometimes when I want to try to question things that people believe to be true, what I do is I try to just observe things. I try to take a bit of I kind of do like a half and half experiment. And so half of what I do is I try to do some research to see if scientific research or if any data or any papers suggest one thing. And then what I do is I observe in nature, I observe things that people believe to be true to see if there's any credence to what people say. And so what I did is I kind of went out and I literally observed just adults, and I observed kids. Not in like a weird way, by the way, but just kind of like when you're hanging out with your friends and your friends have kids, you get to see how their kids interact and how their kids play and all that stuff. And what I saw with pretty much every kid was not some tiny human that has endless energy. What I did see is a tiny human that does not understand how to use their energy efficiently. From what I found, a lot of children don't have more energy than adults. What they really do is they expend massive amounts of energy doing what adults would consider relatively pointless. They'll get super excited, they'll play around, and they'll just sprint around for like hours at a time, like an hour or two. They're just sprinting, going back and forth, maybe just playing a random game of tag or chasing each other or something like that. Just endless, just mindless running, mindless energy expenditure. And what I've noticed is that once they do that for about an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, they crash. They want to take a nap. They're tired. They're exhausted. Could you, as a healthy adult, run around for 2 or 3 hours? Probably. Sure, you probably could. Would you do it? No, because you know better as an adult. You know that you probably have other things to do that are more important. So you don't waste your energy. You don't waste your time just sprinting around and moving around and running frantically like a kid would, because kids don't have certain responsibilities. Kids don't need to do other things besides run and play and maybe go to school, but that's beyond the point. So really, Do I think kids have more energy than adults? No. What I do believe is that kids just use up a day's worth of energy in a handful of hours. Meanwhile, as an adult, you know better than to do that. As an adult, you stretch your energy over an entire day so that way you can get more stuff done, so that way you can be more efficient, so that way you can be more productive. And this is not me trying to make this into a productivity type video. But the point that I'm making is that we often say things like, kids have more energy than adults. And the reality is that that's probably not true. Now, sure, I have looked at things about how metabolism affects energy and things like that. Conclusively speaking, from what I've observed from a practical perspective, they don't impact anything that much. You know, I'm sure in your own life, if you really were to be honest and sit there, you probably know most kids who will run around for a few hours and then fall asleep right after. And then you do know plenty of adults who are very active, who can be up at 5, 6, 7, 8 a.m. and work the entire day or move around all day or do chores or do whatever they need to do until about 9, 10 p.m. and not nap throughout the entire day at all. I'm sure you've met people like that. Adults who are very energetic and kids who are only energetic for a few hours. And this is the point that I'm trying to make. It's like, imagine as an adult, you're taking a hike and you have a few kids. Kids might take a hike and they'll just sprint up to the top as fast as they can because they're trying to race or they're trying to make it into a competition or a game. And that's perfectly fine. But then once they get to the top, they're super exhausted, they're tired, they need a nap. As an adult, you know I shouldn't run up a hill because it's more energy than it's worth. Instead, I'll take my time. I'll walk up the hill. And then when I walk up the hill, I'm not tired. I'm not exhausted. Then I can walk back down the hill. Then I can do other stuff throughout the day. I can take another hike if I want to take a hike. I can do whatever I want to for the entire day because I have a lot more energy to use than that kid that used all of his or her energy in the first 2 or 3 hours of this hike. Hopefully that makes sense. So why do I bring all of this up? The reason why I bring all of this up is pretty much because I believe that oftentimes we as humans, we as a society, what we do is we just take things that other people say and we accept it as true. And I think the problem with that is if you just blindly accept things to be true that other people are saying, it impacts the way you perceive yourself as a result. If you believe that kids have more energy when they're younger versus when they're older, then as you begin to age, you'll almost decrease your own energy. You'll take away from your own energy. Now, if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. But I would argue that's disadvantageous. I think we kind of established earlier that most people would prefer to stay younger longer than grow older faster. Does that make sense? Now, I remember one of the first times I really sat there and realized just how much people are impacted by society telling them that they should have X energy levels at X age. It was a few years ago. Me and a few friends. We were going to, I think it was homecoming at Penn State where I went to college. And a few of the people I went with, actually a few of the people I went with and a few of the people I encountered while I was there were just so tired so early. I remember we were kind of walking around and it was like 7 or 8 p.m. and they were like, oh, I'm getting tired. I'm getting too old for this. Oh, I got to go back and I got to nap. I got to rest up. And I remember thinking to myself, only a handful of years ago, when you were like 21 or 20 or, 19 or 18, I know it's technically not legal, but every college student drinks underage, so who cares? This would not have been a problem. When you were that young, you would stay up for days. And I'm not saying it's healthy, but I'm saying you could do it because you believe that you didn't think so much about your age. Now, a handful of years later, you're getting super exhausted and super tired from the exact same activity. Not even from the exact same activity, from less activity. It's like, how can this be possible? How is this true? And at the exact same time, all the people who were just super low energy, who were falling asleep, who were just super exhausted from the day, they were younger than me. So it's like, how is it that I'm older than you, but I have more energy than you? What's going on? Where's the mix-up here? Now, I remember at the time when we came back from homecoming, I was probably like 26, 27. And to be honest, I felt as energetic as a 26, 27-year-old as I did as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old. Like nothing really changed. But all the people around me, and not just the people I went to homecoming with, just people I knew in general who are getting older, would always complain about how unenergetic they felt, how tired they'd feel more often, how they feel lazier than when they were in college. And it really it bothered me because in my mind I'm thinking to myself, why? How? How do you feel so low energy now? What's changed so much? It can't be your age because I'm older than you and I'm older as well. I'm aging too, and yet I don't feel this lack of energy that you feel. So what's different between the two of us? And I realized what it was. What it was is that my age didn't influence my energy. I didn't let my age influence my energy levels. I didn't let it dictate how I should be living my life. I didn't let it dictate how I should feel. And I think that's the opposite for most people. Most people begin to do things based on their age. They think to themselves, oh, I'm this age, I should behave this way. I should act this way. I should have X amount of energy. What is this should? There's no should. There's only what does exist. Like, this should is just based on perceptions. These things aren't concrete. They're not objective. You don't have to do these things if you choose not to do these things. Just as a side tangent, it makes me think about when people say, oh, when you get older, you're guaranteed to gain weight. I've heard people say things like that. As you get older, your metabolism slows down, and because your metabolism slows down, you're more inclined to gain weight. Sure, that could partially be true, but then again, you do know people who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s who are in fantastic shape. There are some people in that age range that are in better shape than most 20-year-olds. So isn't so much that age is the main factor? Is it the case that their metabolism is the main factor? Or is the real case that they just don't let their age define how healthy they should be? They don't let their age define how their physique should look. They don't let their age define the way they speak, the way they act, what they choose to do with their lives. Meanwhile, you, the person who's 26-year-old who is obese, are letting your age dictate your life. Does that make sense at all? Now, it's been decades since that experiment. I'm an old man now, and I still feel the same. I don't feel any less energetic. To be honest, as I'm getting older, I feel a lot more energetic. It's actually been more of a positive than a negative. And I think the reason for this, the reason why I don't feel less energetic, the reason why I feel more energetic as I get older, the reason why I'm still, I think, in relatively good shape despite getting older, the reason why my body fat continues to get lower despite me getting older, the reason why I'm still continuing to gain muscle while getting older, even though most of the science and most of what people perceive to be true would dictate that this shouldn't be the case, is because I don't let my age impact the way I live my life. I don't identify with my age. And because I don't identify with my age, it doesn't affect me. For the most part, obviously. So far, everything I've said is more or less just pseudoscience. It's just a belief that I have. It could be true. It might not be true. More research is required, of course, to kind of determine, whether what I'm saying is worth listening to or whether it's whether I'm full of shit. But I will say this. Years ago, there was some research that I saw that originally made me stop saying my age. And now as I get older, I'm beginning to think that that research is more valid than I once thought it was. And I think it's one of those concepts that most people don't talk about nearly enough. So let me just tell you a quick story. Years ago, I was sort of in this point in my life where I was trying to really change who I was. I was trying to change my identity. I was trying to improve my life for the better. I was in a really bad position. I was sort of in like a life rut. And so what I did frequently is I would go to the library. I would pick out a lot of different books on fitness, philosophy, finance, and I would just binge read. And on top of that, I still had access to my college email address. And so with the college email address, I can go on websites like LexisNexis and look up different articles, different like publications and articles, and pretty much do my own research. And so I did that a lot. In my free time, I did that constantly. And I remember stumbling upon one article. It was called The Counterclockwise Study by this researcher named Ellen Langer, I believe her name was. And it was a fascinating study. And so pretty much what the study was is they took about 9 or 10 elderly men, I believe they were around the age of 75-ish, and they essentially placed them into this time capsule. It was sort of a manufactured space where all of the music, the TV, the aesthetics of the setting itself, everything was made to replicate 1950s. And if you can just do the math, in the 1950s, all of these men would have been in their 20s. And so they were told to dress like they dressed when they were in their 20s. They were told to speak the way they spoke when they were in their 20s. And I think even upon reaching this time capsule, they expected people to help them with their bags because they were in their 70s. They were told that they would get no help and no assistance moving, no help and no assistance picking up their bags, taking it to their rooms. And I believe that in this time capsule, they also removed all mirrors. So these participants couldn't see themselves. And so it only lasted a week. But what they found was that basically as the participants acted like their 20-something-year-old selves, they began to physiologically change. They had more energy. They I think when they did tests afterwards, they were proven to be more cognitively healthy compared to what they were before they entered the study. They expressed more physical strength after the study than before the study. And I believe that even people who encountered them after the study noted that they looked a lot more youthful. I remember reading the study and I thought to myself, this is so interesting that your belief in your age could impact everything. It can impact the way you think. It can impact the way you move. It can impact your posture. It can impact your strength levels. It can impact your mental health. All things that people, I would imagine, would want to be improved, got improved in just a week simply by just believing that you were younger than you truly were. What that meant to me is that your mental age can dictate your physical health. And to me, that was like mind-blowing. It's like, oh my God. So if you just believe that you are a certain age for as long as possible, you can sort of overcome all the negative side effects, we'll call them, from aging. So this is why I'm sharing this with you, because I think for a lot of people, what they do, you can extrapolate this to a lot of different areas. But what people do is they take things that other people tell them and they accept it to be true without challenging it. And I think if you were to challenge things more, like if your age makes you feel a certain way or should make you feel a certain way, what you find is that it's not true. And what I think you find is that you're really just hurting yourself by having these beliefs. You're hurting yourself by believing that your age is making you less energetic. You're hurting yourself by believing that the older you get, the less that you can learn. There's always that saying, I'm sure if you're watching this, at least if you're American, you've heard the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Why? Why can't you? Is this something that is objectively true, or is this something that we believe to be true, and because we believe it to be true, we just don't bother putting in the effort to learn new tricks as an old dog, so to speak? And by the way, I did actually do some research when I was in college on neuroplasticity, and it turns out what people say is a lie. You can teach an old dog new tricks, and as you get older, your brain is still plastic and you can still learn new things, just as a side note. So this is kind of why I wanted to share this video with you. And this is the reason why I don't like saying my age out loud. Because what I found is that the more you say your age, the more you begin to identify with that age. If I were to say to you that I'm 45 years old, in my mind, I have an idea of what a 45-year-old looks like. And because I have that idea of what a 45-year-old looks like, and because I'm relating my age to that person, I begin to act like that person. I think on a subconscious level, but it doesn't matter. It still impacts me. I just want to be that guy who's 86 years old, and people ask, what's your age? And I go, 25. Maybe by the time I'm 86, I'll still look like I'm 25. Who knows? I'll do a YouTube video in about 10 years to show whether or not that's true. So I want you to try this out. Try this out for like a week, a month, a year. Come back and in the comments, let me know how this went for you. Now, I want to point out one more thing, and this is something I've noticed when I started doing this myself. Everyone will try to sort of counter you staying youthful. It blows my mind. It's weird. If you say to people, I'm 25, they'll try their absolute best to prove you wrong, as if they want you to age with them, as if they want you to be older with them. It's like, if I'm gonna age, you're gonna age too. There's no way you're gonna stay youthful forever and I'm not gonna. It's interesting to me. So be on the lookout for that. If anyone asks you your age and you give them, say, 21, 22, 25, whatever age you choose to pick that's young, you'll find that a lot of people are gonna try to challenge that, and they're gonna try to somehow age you up. Not everyone, but a lot of people will do it. So let me know what you think about this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do me a big favor. Please take the like button below. Please pick it up. Please smash it against the wall with as much power as you possibly can. Then look at it, realize how disgusting it is, peel it off, put it back, and then just gently tap it. And if you did like the video, please leave a comment below. It helps me a lot. It lets me actually be seen by other people. The algorithm on YouTube does not like me. All social media platforms hate me. I don't know why. I'm just here trying to get people to open up their minds. But I think the social media lords do not like people that have open minds. They like people having TikTok brain. So do me a favor, let other people see this video, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye.